We're going to play a little game. This one, it's tag one, sign one, cut one, Cowboys off-season edition, and I throw things over to my broadcasting partner for the evening, Mr. Kevin Gray.
Appreciate that so much, Zach Wolchuk, as Brian Broaddus will say. Appreciate that so much. Let's play a little game I like to call not start one. It's a different one. I get my
start
games.
And sit.
I'm starting getting my games confused.
All right, let me look at the fantasy lineups.
Yeah, tag one, sign one, cut one here on your home of the Cowboys 105 through the fan. You can play along too on the truckwreck.com text line 877-881-1053. We are in the middle of the franchise tag window being opened. The tag window opened yesterday and is open until March the 8th. And the Dallas Cowboys have several individuals who could be considered potential franchise tag candidates. You'll hear over the next several days of guys potentially being tagged who will be kept for their teams going into 2022. And before we get into the actual candidates to be tagged this year, the franchise tag numbers for the 2022 NFL season are out now. If you are curious, the franchise tag window open until March 8th includes $28 million for the franchise tag for quarterbacks. For defensive ends, $20 million this year is the franchise tag number. Wide receivers are looking at about $19 million. Linebacker, $17 million.
Woo!
Cornerbacks are getting paid $17 million this year under the franchise tag. Hello. You can thank Byron Jones and others for that.
Xavier Howard getting that new deal.
Those increases. Offensive linemen, if you want to franchise tag your offensive lineman, that'll cost you nearly $17 million. Your defensive tackles, nearly $17 million. How about your safeties are commanding nearly $14 million on a franchise tag, $13.5 million.
Which includes the linebacker playing safety, Jamal Adams.
Exactly. You can thank him for that, too. You can thank Ezekiel Elliott, in part because the running back franchise tag this year is $12.5 million if you want to keep your running back if you need to franchise tag him. And finally, your tight ends are getting tagged at nearly $11 million, $10.8 million. And your punters and kickers at $5.4 million. So if you want to tag Brian Anger, it's going to cost you $5.4 million.
And keep in mind, he made just $1 million last year as a second-team All-Pro.
Exactly. So that kind of gives you an idea into the window of how much money it's going to cost to keep your respective players. So let's play a little game called Tag One, Sign One, Cut One. And look, it doesn't necessarily be position by position. I'm going to give you 3 players. You're going to tag one, you're going to sign one, and you're going to cut one. You guys ready?
I'm ready for this, man.
Right.
I love these games.
All right, here we go. The first 3 players I'm going to name for you are going to be your 3 foremost candidates for franchise tags, okay? Dalton Schultz, Randy Gregory, and Michael Gallup. Sign one, cut one, tag one. Dalton Schultz, Randy Gregory, Michael Gallup.
I am going to sign Michael Gallup. Okay?
Okay.
And I don't know what kind of deal that's going to look like. It might even just be a one-year deal, for all we know. But I would sign Michael Gallup out of those 3. I think he does have a great relationship with Dak Prescott, and there might not be a better boundary receiver in football. With his ability to go up and high point the football, but also contort his body to stay in bounds in the end zone and along the sidelines. It's a rare gift that Michael Gallup possesses there. I think, the Cowboys can find replacements if he were to go, but out of this group, I would sign Gallup because I don't think he's worth tagging for $19 million. You can sign him for far less than that. I would tag Randy Gregory. Now, I think he's the most likely to get signed out of this group, but given these options, and because I have to place a label on one, I think Randy Gregory might be one of those players. He's certainly earned a long-time contract based on how he's already been impacted throughout his career, some of that fault of his own with suspensions and whatnot, but Randy is a guy to me that I would kind of like to see, can you stay healthy for a full season, and can you continue to be trustworthy and reliable? Last year was amazing. I'm rooting for Randy Gregory. He's one of my favorite guys on the team. But the mental lapses when it comes to the silly penalties was something that irritated the crap out of me, especially in that playoff game. So I'd tag Randy, and I would cut Dalton Schultz.
Oh, okay. So you're cutting Dalton Schultz from the 214. They would tag Randy, sign Gallup, and cut Dalton Schultz from another one from 214. They named two players that we didn't name necessarily in this list, but we'll name them anyway. They would tag Randy Gregory, sign J-Ron Curse, and cut Ezekiel Elliott just to get their text in there.
Tell you what, I wish the Cowboys could, man, but I don't think they can cut Zeke. I think
not until 2023.
Yeah, they messed that up with the restructure last offseason, unfortunately. But yeah, that's a bad. I mean, can you think of a deal in recent memory that's worse than the Cowboys deal with Ezekiel Elliott?
Oh man, specifically at the running back position or just in general?
Just the Cowboys in general. I mean, that was.
Yeah.
He fleeced them. And credit to Zeke, get your money, man. I'm never going to fault the player for getting paid, but you could tell that was a bad deal even at the time. They should have been focusing on getting Dak done early, so they could have gotten less money for him.
Yeah, it's turned out to be a bad contract, and I love Zeke, tough as nails, but the decline in production, they keep forcing him out there, or not forcing him out there. He keeps playing on the partially torn PCL last year. I didn't necessarily was a fan of all that. But yeah, it's one of the more poor contracts in recent memory for the Dallas Cowboys.
So frustrating.
Alec, you got your tag one, signed one, cut one candidates ready?
Yeah, so I think I'll go just a little bit switched up from Wolchuk here. I'll sign Randy Gregory, just because I feel like quality pass rushers come at a very, very high premium as of late. And I'm not ready to roll those dice just yet when I know I got my guy. And then I'm going to go ahead and tag Gallup, even though I know he would probably make less per year on a contract. The only reason I'm doing this, I did a mock draft last night. I just laid in bed doing a bunch.
Oh,
I love you, Medford. That's my guy.
Literally just laid there on Pro Football Network. Shout out Dalton Miller. I used their simulator, and I got George Pickens in the second round. So I am happy. I'm happy with the talent of the wide receiver class in this draft. So I think you could get a pretty good value player that could step up after 1 year when Gallup is gone. I think you just go run it back with Gallup and try to win it all now.
Okay.
And then you cut Dalton Schultz because I've always been a Blake Jarwin truther. I don't know why, I just have been. So I think you run it back with him again and let his deal expire, and then you try over again with Sean McEwen.
I think in this scenario, I'm tagging Dalton Schultz, I'm signing Randy Gregory, and I'm letting Michael Gallup walk.
So why? I mean, sell me on the Dalton Schultz idea, because Eric and I are pretty simpatico, and I think you can find a guy to come in and give you similar production, or even just a combo of tight ends to give you similar production as Dalton Schultz. And maybe if the Cowboys hadn't signed Jarwin already and were paying him a decent amount of money as a starting tight end, I'd feel differently, because I do think there is a natural rapport between Dak and Schultz. But he is a liability when it comes to blocking, and I think that whatever team gives him that money is ultimately going to regret it. So why do you think the Cowboys should tag Dalton Schultz?
I think that ultimately is the reason why, is because if you're telling me that you're creating a Dak-friendly offense and you're going to make things as comfortable for Dak Prescott as you want to make them offensively, there was no other receiver, maybe other than Cedric Wilson, who he trusted more than Dalton Schultz. And if you tell me, if Dak Prescott comes up to me and says, hey, I need that guy back in my offense, well, I guess we need to figure out a way to bring him back then. And that to me, because you're not going to get necessarily explosive, yards after the catch or those kinds of things that you would want from some of the more explosive tight ends in the NFL. But your quarterback loves him and he trusts him. And that to me is enough that if you're an offense that you want to build around Prescott, okay, then I guess we'll need to figure out a way to bring Dalton Schultz back. Because under normal circumstances, no, I would not bring him back. But my man had over 800 yards receiving this year. He was arguably your best pass catcher, this year in tight spots. When he needed a receiver, it was either Wilson or it was Schultz. So that to me is the biggest reason why you bring Dalton Schultz back.
So if I'm Dak Prescott and I'm saying, hey, I really want Michael Gallup and Dalton Schultz back, you're the front office. You can only bring back one. You're going Schultz over Gallup?
If I had to choose between those two?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably choose Schultz, and that's difficult because I think part of that is and this is again if you don't move off of Amari Cooper.
Sure.
In that room, you would still have Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and I'm guessing you're bringing back Cedric Wilson in this case as well, to have that 3 as your receiver core, going into next year. If you decide to keep, Malik Turner, who, is a good player as well, you've got some depth in your wide receiver room to where you won't nearly miss Michael Gallup in the way that I think people may think that you may miss him given what he's done, in the past. But again, this goes back to your quarterback loving Dalton Schultz in that way. That to me is the bigger sell point, on this particular, scenario.
I just wonder if it's less about Dalton Schultz and more about just that position in the offense, because that player is running quarterback-friendly routes. And if you sub Dalton Schultz for a Blake Jarwin if he's healthy, or a Sean McEwen like Medford was talking about, if that player will also get the same amount of targets and production, I should say, with Dak, because that's just how the offense is built. Just Dalton. The issue with Schultz to me, and I hear you, and we're getting a lot of great feedback on the truckwreck.com text line. People that agree with you on that. Dak will get worse after you cut Schultz from the 214 and the 832, saying they agree with you, KG, on this. But I just don't know when you look at your roster construction, because of the things that you said there with Schultz. He's not a guy that's going to stretch the field. He's more of just a possession-type receiver, but he does have great hands. He will catch contested balls, but I just don't know that he does enough, and he's special. He's a unique enough talent to warrant the contract that inevitably the Jets or someone's going to give him.
The Chargers, maybe, yeah.
Sure, and kudos to him for signing that deal. I just don't know that I want the Cowboys to be overpaying for another player like a Dalton Schultz, which is what I fear they would be doing. But I hear you in terms of the rapport and connection with Dak. I do understand that perspective.
And maybe this year for Schultz only, since the tag is $10.8 million, you bring him back on the 1-year deal on the tag only, and then if he performs again to the level that you had him perform at this year, then you could say, well, going into 2023, when the salary cap is supposed to be around, $236 million, you could justify paying him the kind of money that he may command this offseason, and not necessarily, you don't have to worry about paying him that $12-13 million that he may get on the open market. So I think it would be a safe play if you decided to tag him for 10.8, keep him. Let's see if he does it again. And then if you want to keep him that badly after this upcoming season, then you can make a decision on whether or not you want to pay him top tier, tight end money, once again. But that's how we play sign one, tag one, cut one.